Behind the closed doors of an ordinary family home, a shocking and tragic discovery was made, one that would leave investigators and an entire community in a state of disbelief. What seemed like an ordinary family on the outside turned out to be hiding dark secrets that would later be revealed in the most horrifying way. Today, we're diving into the mystery of this disturbing scene and the chilling details that followed. In this video, we'll take you through the unsettling events that unfolded when police made their grim discovery, peeling back layers of the family's life, the investigation that followed, and the unanswered questions that still linger. Stay with us as we uncover the tragic story behind closed doors. Tragic family mystery. Police discover chilling scene behind closed doors. On the 4th of July 2009, faculty members from the finance department of the Chinese university were working overtime, tracking and managing the school's finances. Among them was a 43-year-old Tang Chenghui, a respected faculty member everyone expected to see that day, but as the hours passed, Chenghui was nowhere to be found. At 11 a.m., a man, known only as Ma, called Chenghui's mobile phone. Despite the concern that any missing faculty member would raise, Ma wasn't immediately alarmed. He knew that Chenghui had been busy with family matters. His family had recently adopted a stray dog with a skin condition. Chenghui had planned to take the dog to the vet, so Ma assumed that was the reason for his absence. But when July 5th arrived, Chenghui still hadn't shown up to work. Ma called his phone again, but again, no answer. He didn't have Chenghui's landline number, so he couldn't follow up there. By July 6th, 2 days had passed with no word from Chenghui. He hadn't reported to work, and none of his colleagues had been able to reach him. Concern began to grow, and eventually, a co-worker alerted the finance department. Chenghui's superiors, now worried, called his home number. No one picked up. Desperate, they contacted the library where Chenghui's wife, Tang Enyi, worked. The response they received was just as troubling. Enyi was also absent, with no prior notice given. Chenghui and Enyi were a married couple from Zhongshan, Guangdong province, who had been together for 11 years. They had 2 young daughters, 10-year-old Tan Zhaowen and 7-year-old Tan Zhaoying. Their sudden and unexplained absence left many questions hanging in the air. What had happened to the Tan family? Why were both parents missing without a trace? And what secrets were hidden behind the closed doors of their home? Growing suspicion. Residing in an abandoned recycling station on Wuzhou South Road, they were known for their kindness and positive outlook on life. Despite their financial struggles, they were seen as a cheerful, happy family. Their children, Zhao Wen and Zhao Ying, were well behaved, and Chenghui was often seen taking them into town for fun outings. So, when the family went missing, many assumed they had simply taken a vacation to spend quality time together. However, as time passed, it became clear that something had gone terribly wrong. Chenghui's colleagues continued to try reaching him, calling both his mobile and home phones repeatedly. Eventually, someone picked up, but it wasn't a family member. Instead, a middle-aged man, unfamiliar to them, claimed to be Chenghui's cousin. He said that the family had gone to Dongguan, in mainland Guangdong province, for a summer vacation. The man also stated that Chenghui had given him his phone to keep safe during their trip. When pressed for more details, the man remained vague, saying he didn't know when the family would return to Hong Kong. After a few more questions, he abruptly hung up and turned off the phone. This strange call only deepened the suspicions of Chenghui's colleagues. He was known to be diligent and responsible, always at work unless there was a valid reason for absence. If the family had gone on vacation, Chenghui would have made arrangements for his daughter's schooling. Moreover, the family cared for 9 stray dogs, raising the question of who was looking after them while they were away. The fact that Chenghui's family was struggling financially, how could they afford a trip to mainland China? Chenghui's personal history only added to the mystery. He had grown up with a father who was a sailor, and a mother who had worked at a now-closed paper mill. Tragically, Chenghui's father had gone missing without a trace, an event that had deeply affected his mother, who was now in a nursing home. Chenghui had always visited her weekly, making it completely out of character for him to abandon her. The more his colleagues thought about it, the more the situation didn't add up. So, they decided to involve the police. One of Chenghui's colleagues took the police to the family home, the abandoned recycling center in Pingshe village. On the way there, something unusual happened. From a distance, they saw a short man near the fence of the Tan family's property, who quickly disappeared from view. At the time, they thought little of it, but but as they arrived at the home, they found the gate locked, adding yet another layer of mystery to the case, a lead, and a strange phone call. After arriving at the Tan family's home, the police began their investigation by surveying the property and questioning the few neighbors available. The property, an abandoned recycling station covering nearly 450 square meters, had only 90 meters of constructed space. The rest of the land was filled with empty flower beds, and the structure itself was illegal, with the original owner building makeshift tin houses on the foundation for waste recycling. On the other side of the property was a stone house used as a pig farm, and the area was sparsely populated. This left the police with very little to go on, with only one neighbor to speak with. That neighbor, an elderly woman named Huang, lived alone across the street. She had been in the area for years and was familiar with the Tan family's routine. She told the police that the family often spent their afternoons tending to the garden. However, she didn't know much about their personal lives. According to Huang, the Tan family didn't have many visitors due to their remote location, though she did mention Cheng Hui's cousin, a middle-aged man named Zhu. Huang didn't know much about Zhu, except that she'd overheard Enyi mention that Cheng Hui's uncle lived in a nearby stone house. When the police shared that the person who answered Cheng Hui's phone had claimed to be his cousin, Huang confirmed this was likely Zhu. Unfortunately, she didn't know Zhu's address or the location of Cheng Hui's uncle. However, Huang did offer a chilling piece of information. On July 5th, she had heard cries for help coming from the Tan family's house. This led the police to intensify their efforts, mobilizing officers to conduct door-to-door inquiries in Pingshe village, hoping to uncover more details. Tracking down Zhu. Later that day, the police managed to track down Zhu at a stone house located at number 74 Wuzhu Road. Zhu, a 42-year-old man, confirmed that he was indeed Cheng Hui's cousin. He explained that he often visited the Tan family to help with renovations and gardening, but when questioned about the phone call, his story remained consistent. According to Zhu, the Tan family had gone to China for a vacation. He added that on July 5th, Cheng Hui had visited his mother at the nursing home before returning to the family home. Cheng Hui then told Zhu that he planned to go to Dongguan, China for a few days. To avoid high roaming charges, he asked Zhu to hold on to Cheng Hui's mobile phone until he returned. When asked about the strange sighting of a man fleeing the property, Zhu explained that he had been the one seen leaving the house. He had been feeding the Tan family's dogs, which they had left behind. The police had finally managed to get a lead, but Zhu's explanation only deepened the mystery. Was he telling the truth? Or was there more to the story that remained hidden behind the walls of the Tan family's home? Truth behind Shang-Chi's actions. His responses were calm, and there were no glaring inconsistencies in his story. However, the more they asked, the more they began to question his involvement. When asked if he had a key to the Tan family's home, Shang-Chi firmly denied it, insisting that he didn't. His demeanor remained composed, but something about his calmness seemed off. Despite finding Shang-Chi and getting his account of the situation, the police continued their inquiries. As they spoke to villagers, a new piece of information came to light. A few days earlier, a stranger had borrowed money from a female villager. After a heated exchange, the woman threatened to visit the stranger's home to collect the debt, mentioning that when Cheng Hui's mother was hospitalized, the stranger had also been in debt to her. The villagers were adamant, however, that the stranger wasn't Shang-Chi. This new information fueled speculation. Some believed that the Tan family might have gone into hiding to escape their debts and had lied to Shang-Chi about their plans. The situation became even more suspicious when the police learned that Shang-Chi had been to their property regularly to maintain and work on the home. Villagers confirmed that he was always able to open the gate and doors without anyone being present. This raised a troubling question. If Shang-Chi could have access to the home at any time, did he have a key? The police soon discovered that the answer was yes. Huang, the neighbor, recalled seeing Cheng Hui hand the key to Shang-Chi. Cheng Hui had left it at the university for Shang-Chi to pick up, and Huang had witnessed the exchange. With this new information, the police returned to Shang-Chi's home to ask for the key. This time, his story began to unravel. When confronted again, Shang-Chi denied having the key, insisting that he only used a spare one for renovations, which he had already returned. However, his behavior was noticeably different this time, less collected and more evasive. He was deliberately avoiding key details. Sensing something was wrong, the police threatened to search his home. Suddenly, Shang-Chi became panicked and, after some hesitation, remembered that he had another house key that he hadn't returned. He quickly retrieved it from his dresser and handed it over to the police. Despite his increasingly suspicious behavior and the inconsistencies in his story, there was still no direct evidence linking Shang-Chi to the disappearance of the Tan family. With no concrete proof to make an arrest, the police decided to put him under surveillance while they continued their investigation. Meanwhile, they used the spare key to enter the Tan family's home, hoping to uncover more clues that could help solve the mystery. The house was in disarray, clearly ransacked. Items were strewn about, and it was obvious that someone had gone through the property in a frantic search. The most unsettling discovery, however, were the fresh blood stains on the walls. The spread of the blood suggested that someone had likely been killed right there on the property. In the kitchen, the police found a sink full of dirty dishes. An odd detail, given that the family was supposedly on vacation in China. Anyone preparing to leave for an extended trip would have likely tidied up before leaving. Yet the mess in the kitchen painted a different picture. In the couple's master bedroom, the police discovered the family's ID cards tucked away in a dresser, another piece of evidence that contradicted the story that they had gone to China. The investigation continued, and the police found more disturbing evidence. A blood-stained shirt was discovered in a side room, along with a blood-stained plastic hollow water pipe. The police brought in sniffer dogs to help track down further clues, or perhaps even the missing family members. The dogs soon picked up a scent and led officers to a patch of freshly turned over soil, where they found more bloodstains. One more detail added to the mounting suspicion. The Tan family's daughters, Zhao Wen and Zhao Ying, had signed up for summer school. With their names on the list, it became clear they weren't on vacation, as their parents had claimed. The combination of these unsettling findings made it evident that something sinister had happened to the Tan family. As the evidence pointed toward a foul play, a dedicated task force was set up to investigate the case. However, the investigation didn't need to go much further. Due to the late hour, the police cordoned off the scene, blocking access to Pingshe village and placing Zhu Shenqi under house arrest as a prime suspect. It didn't take long for him to crack under pressure. Shang-Chi confessed to the crime. According to his confession, Shang-Chi was originally from Huangpao in the Guangdong province. He lived with his sister, wife and 2 children, ages 15 and 16, who suffered from memory problems. Shang-Chi had once made a living selling motorcycles on Zhongshan City, but when Guangdong imposed a ban on motorcycles in 2006, his business suffered a severe blow. Facing financial difficulties, he reached out to his cousin, Tang Shenghui, in Hong Kong, asking for help finding work. Cheng Hui was able to find Shang-Chi a construction job in Hong Kong, paying a daily salary of 500 Hong Kong dollars, which included board and lodging. However, after 2 weeks, Shang-Chi grew dissatisfied with the low wages and, frustrated by company deductions, quit the job without notice and returned to China. In 2007, after Typhoon Pabuk caused extensive damage to his home, Shang-Chi returned to Hong Kong once again, hoping for help. This time, Cheng Hui could not find him another job, so he offered to pay Shang-Chi from his own salary if he agreed to help work on his home. Shang-Chi accepted the offer, but little did Cheng Hui know that this decision would have tragic consequences. Every few months, Shang-Chi would travel to Hong Kong to help with odd jobs around Cheng Hui's house, including gardening and home repairs. But beneath the surface, things were far more sinister. Shang-Chi and Cheng Hui's wife, Enyi, began a secret affair, which Cheng Hui eventually discovered. On July 3, 2008, Shang-Chi traveled to Hong Kong once again. On July 5th, he accompanied Cheng Hui to visit his mother at a nursing home, but then secretly slipped away to continue his affair with Enyi. When Cheng Hui unexpectedly returned home early, he found his cousin in the midst of betrayal. An argument erupted, and Cheng Hui charged at Shang-Chi, who claimed that Cheng Hui's eyes were filled with murderous intent. In a frantic act of self-defense, or so he later said, Shang-Chi grabbed a 25-centimeter fruit knife and stabbed Cheng Hui to death, leaving his body in a pool of blood. Enyi, horrified by what had just transpired, wanted to call the police, but Shang-Chi couldn't let that happen. He made a chilling decision to silence her as well. He found some wires and tied her hands behind her back, before using tape to seal her mouth and nose, finishing her off with a plastic bag over her head. The couple's 2 daughters, Zhao Wen and Zhao Ying, were in a nearby bedroom watching cartoons. Hearing the screams, they ran towards their mother, only to discover their father dead and Shang-Chi in the act of killing Enyi. In a frantic attempt to escape, the two girls ran back to their bedroom, locking the door behind them. Shang-Chi, now focused on eliminating all witnesses, pried open the door with pliers and proceeded to kill the girls the same way he had killed their mother, taping their mouths and noses and smothering them with plastic bags. By the time Shang-Chi was finished, all 4 members of the family were dead. Shang-Chi, realizing the enormity of his actions, initially struggled with what to do next. After some consideration, he decided that hiding the bodies in a nearby ditch or body of water would be too obvious, and dismembering them would be too time-consuming. He opted to bury them on the property, a decision that would prove to be his undoing. On July 6th, he returned to the house, where he tried to clean up as much blood as possible before digging a shallow grave in the yard. He placed the bodies of the family inside, along with the weapons he had used, and then refilled the hole with dirt. But his crime didn't go unnoticed. The investigation and the trial. When police first began investigating the Tan family's disappearance, they were skeptical of the initial story that the family had gone on vacation in China. They found numerous inconsistencies, such as the family's dirty dishes and personal items left behind, and soon discovered the truth. The family had met a brutal end at the hands of Shang-Chi. As the investigation continued, Shang-Chi was arrested, and after some initial resistance, he confessed to the murders. However, his confession was far from straightforward. As investigators uncovered more details, it became clear that Shang-Chi had lied about several aspects of the crime. He initially claimed that the murders were committed in self-defense after an argument over an affair, but later changed his story, admitting that the killings were premeditated. Forensic evidence revealed that the murder of Sheng Hui was far more violent than Shang-Chi had described, and that Enyi and Zhao Ying had been strangled, not suffocated. The bodies of the family were found buried under cement that Shang-Chi had purchased before the murders, suggesting that the crime was planned well in advance. Further investigations had revealed that Shang-Chi had stolen money from Cheng Hui's person and had been planning to rob him for some time, motivated by his own financial troubles. He had even used Enyi's bank cards after the murders, but failed to withdraw any money, which pointed to his premeditated intent. With all this evidence, Shang-Chi was charged with the brutal murder of Cheng Hui, Enyi and Zhao Ying, while he was acquitted of the murder of Zhao Wen, who was found guilty of manslaughter. In the courtroom, Shang-Chi tried to present himself as a victim, claiming that he was coerced into confessing after being tortured by the police. However, his defense fell apart when the jury found him guilty on all charges, except the murder of Zhao Wen. On November 23, 2010, Shang-Chi was sentenced to life in prison for the murders of Cheng Hui, Enyi and Zhao Ying. His acquittal for Zhao Wen's murder did little to change the severity of his sentence, and the judge condemned him as utterly devoid of a conscience and worse than a beast. The brutal murders shocked Hong Kong, and the community of Pingshe Village was left in mourning. Many residents expressed their outrage over Shang-Chi's actions, especially when his family came to his defense, accusing Cheng Hui of exploiting him for cheap labor. This only fueled the anger of the local community, and Shang-Chi's family eventually moved back to China to escape the backlash. In the wake of the murders, an outpouring of support for the Tan family came from all corners of Hong Kong. Fundraisers were held to cover the costs of the family's funeral, and their 9 stray dogs were adopted by a new family, who took them for walks every year on July 5th, the anniversary of the murders. The tragedy left a permanent scar on the community, but it also sparked a movement of support, proving that even in the face of such horror, compassion and unity can emerge.